2021. And I am Denti from ITS Global Engagement, and I will be your master of ceremony this afternoon. And thank you for joining our GLS on SDGs today. Before we start our agenda, let me inform you of some rules for the event. First, please adjust your name or ID screen using the format name_campus. And second, during the lecture, please turn off your microphone unless allowed by the moderator. Third, please fill your attendance at bit.ly/GLS_attendance, and our committee will send the attendance link in the chat box as well. And for participants who wish to get an FP certificate and stamp, please fill the attendance 15 minutes after the session starts. And last but not least, participants who wish to ask questions during the question and answer session, please send your question to bit.ly/GLS_Q&A2, and the link for the question listed in the chat room as well. Or you can ask directly by clicking the raise hand feature. And for today's GLS on SDGs, we'll present two topics entitled Poultry and Swine Production and Health Management that will be delivered by Dr. Sinamar Estudillo from Tarlac Agricultural University, and Combating Running Rabies amid COVID-19 pandemic, One Health Approach that will be delivered by Ms. Krestel Isla, DVM, from Tarlac Agricultural University as well. And this lecture will be moderated by Ms. Iska Desmawati SSEMSE from IPS. And before we start our agenda, allow me to deliver our schedule today as follows. First is the opening from the MC. Second, introduction to moderator and speaker. Third, lecture session. Fourth, Q&A session. And fifth, certificate awarding, and will be ended by the closing. And before we proceed to the next agenda, let me introduce our moderator for today. There will be Ms. Iska Desmawati, SSPMSE. She is a lecturer and researcher at Department of Biology, Institute of Technology, 10 November. And she is graduate from Department of Biology, Universitas Erlangga, and also got her Bachelor in Science from Department of Biology, ITS. And her research interest is ecology, biogeography, and also product innovation for conservation. And Miss Iska, hello.
Hello.
Okay, how are you?
Oh, fine. Here it's already started raining here.
Oh yeah. Okay. Now, without further ado, let's proceed to the agenda. Ms. Iska, the time is yours.
Okay, thank you so much, Mbak Denti, for such nice information to me. And hello, everyone, and also the honorable our special speakers today, the Dr. Sinamar Estudillo or Dr. Amar. Hello.
Hello, everyone.
Hello, and of course, the second speaker is Dr. Krestel Isla, or we can call it Dr. Joy. Hello, Dr. Joy.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone.
Great. We are really great to have both of you in here, and both of our special speaker today was from Tarlac Agriculture University, which is we have a good friendship, like a family together. We have a good collaboration, and we hope this good collaboration also can increase for further new research or exchange student, exchange staff, and something like that we can do together. Okay, so for the first lecture, we will have Dr. Sinamar Estudillo, and Dr. Sinamar or Dr. Amar from the Tarlac Agriculture University. For the educational background, got a bachelor degree from the Science in Zoology, Far Eastern University of Philippines, and also got a Doctor of Veterinary Medicine from the Animal Food Gregorio Araneta University Foundation from Philippines also, and Master Science in Animal Husbandry, Animal Nutrition, De La Salle Araneta University, Philippines, and got a Doctor of Philosophy, Poultry Production, Tarlac Agriculture University, Philippines. And Dr. Amar also have a lot of license such veterinary medicine license examinations, National Certificate 2 in animal production, National Certificate 2 also in swine production, poultry production, ruminant production, and also have a lot of professional membership, such as Philippine Association of Veterinary Medicine Association, Regional Good Animal Husbandry Practice, Team of Region 3, DVMA Council on Education. And for the subject, that will be about jurisprudence, ethic and business, swine and poultry medicine, swine poultry production, and flock health management production and herd health maintenance. That's really a great CV from the Dr. Amar. So for the time to lecture, I will give it to Dr. Amar. Thank you. Maybe you can.
Thank you, Ms. Isla, for the nice introduction. So I would like to share my screen to you. Is my screen visible now?
Yes, yes, it is great. It is visible.
Okay. Thank you very much. So again, thank you, Ms. Iska, for the nice introduction. And so I would like to greet everybody. Good afternoon to everyone. And it is my pride and honor to be invited as part of this endeavor, the guest lecture series on sustainable development goals. And I would like to extend my appreciation to Institute Technology Sipulino Pemper for this opportunity to interact with you. So again, I am Sinamar Estudillo. Friends call me Amar, and most students and colleagues call me Doc A. And the topics assigned to me are two subjects, that is poultry and swine production and health management. And in our program or curriculum, poultry and swine production and health management are two separate subjects and taken for a duration of 1 semester. And so with these two subjects taken in a semester, so I compressed it in at least more than an hour, and I hope I could do it in less than an hour or 1 hour at most. So please bear with me. And so, these are the selected topics for this presentation, and the approach is more on application. So let us first take poultry production and health management. There are 3 types of poultry production, which depends on the purpose or enterprise. So we have broiler production. If our purpose is to produce poultry for meat purposes, wherein production only takes 32 days at most. Second is egg production. Of course, as the name implies, production of egg for table purposes or egg production for hatching. And thirdly, raising pullets for replacement of matured and unproductive or culled layers. So these are transferred to the laying farm. I'm sorry again. So these are transferred to the laying farm for egg production. So poultry production is also classified as the size. For a small farm flock, this is classified as those that have low inputs, backyard production by smallholders. And those that are large commercial operation are those with large scale, intensive commercial production systems with modern technology. So here are images showing you a large scale commercial production, both meat and broiler and egg production in one of the farms under the watch of our former student, who is now a successful and expert in poultry production, especially in broiler production. So in putting up a poultry farm or whatever farm for that matter, one of the most important factors to consider is biosecurity. So this aspect is an important entity to the plan because this is major particular in a farm for security in all angles of production to prevent the spread of diseases and also to control the escalation of diseases. And there are major components of biosecurity. One is isolation, which refers to the confinement of animals within a controlled environment. And a fence keeps all birds in, but it also keeps other animals out. So isolation also applies to the practice of separating birds by age group. So number two, biosecurity is traffic control, includes both the traffic into the farm and traffic patterns within the farm. And thirdly, sanitation, which addresses the disinfection of materials, people, and equipment entering the farm and the cleanliness of the personnel on farm. Okay, so biosecurity is the implementation of measures to prevent disease introduction into a healthy population of animals or limit the spread of disease once introduced. And to prevent outbreak, it is the responsibility of everyone involved in raising a flock to keep poultry flocks from becoming infected by focusing on biosecurity they can control on their premises. So biosecurity approaches include both structural and operational components. So all livestock and poultry producers should have biosecurity tailored to their specific operation, and producers are encouraged to work with industry organizations, veterinarians, and other animal health professionals in developing their plans. All farm staff, anyone living on the farm, need to understand the importance of biosecurity and follow biosecurity protocols. Okay, so we're done with biosecurity. Let's move on to the next topic, which is zone of thermoneutrality. For most poultry, the thermoneutral zone is between 15.60 degrees centigrade and 24 degrees centigrade. As temperatures increase towards 85 degrees Fahrenheit, the birds will adjust their behavior and decrease feed intake and production. Intensively, house livestock perform most efficiently in what is called zone of thermoneutrality. Thus, zone is 17 degrees centigrade to 27 degrees centigrade for chicken. And within these temperature ranges, they grow faster and eat less. Otherwise, lower than the zone of thermoneutrality, the birds will suffer from cold stress, and higher than the zone of thermoneutrality, heat stress sets in. Okay, so there are three types of heating used with intensive livestock. These are conduction, convection, radiant heating, and to differentiate these three types of heating. So convection, the middle diagram shows that the two bodies A and B are not in contact. So B warms up, the air surrounding it becomes warmer and lighter and flows to A, gradually warming A until an energetic balance is reached. Convection heating is often used for hot spotting or hot spot breeding. Next is the conduction heating, this one. Say so, in conduction heating, this heat is transmitted by contact. The body A is put in contact with body B, whose temperature is higher. This creates a heat flow from B to A and results in an evening out of the temperatures of the two bodies. And this heat is transmitted by conduction. And the last type of heating is the radiant heating. So this heat is transmitted without any material support. And in the diagram, you can see our two bodies on the right with B having the higher initial temperature, as all bodies radiate energy once they become warmer than absolute zero. So B radiates more energy than A and becomes an emitter. And this is a typical of infrared brooder and the most common method of heating intensive livestock. Okay, so brooding is important in poultry and very critical for the first 2 weeks. Birds must be made comfortable and proper brooding management is necessary for the bird's survival. Shown here are different characteristics of uh, birds during the brooding period. On the upper figure, birds are evenly distributed, and the other figure, birds either crowd at the source of light for heat or they stay away from the source of heat, because when chicks evenly spread, they made no noise, which signifies contentment. But if chicks crowd to brooder, chicks are noisy, distress calling, and if there is uneven distribution of light and external noise, they crowd on one side. So therefore, we have to observe brooding prior intensively to, or brooding period intensively for the bird's survival. So day-old chick does not develop the thermoregulatory mechanism fully and takes about 2 weeks to develop their mechanism and homeostasis. So therefore, they cannot maintain the body temperature properly for the first few weeks of life and may be subjected to chilling and can die. Okay, so let's move on now to the reproductive physiology. So this is shown here in the slide are male and female reproductive organs of poultry. So hens or female chickens lay eggs with or without the presence of a rooster or male chicken. The reproductive tract of the hen is also different from mammals, and the different functions are performed in different segments of the tract. The major structures are as follows. The ovary, which contains the immature and mature follicles. The mature follicles consist of the egg yolk and the unfertilized ovum. Next to ovary is the infundibulum. So yolk with attached ovum is snatched up by the infundibulum. Okay, so next to infundibulum is the magnum. While traveling through this part of the oviduct, the albumen or egg white is formed in the magnum. Next to the magnum is the isthmus. This is the tough outer membrane located just beneath the eggshell. Is formed in this part of the oviduct. And next is the uterus, which is also called to us as the shell gland. This is where the eggshell is formed. Next is the vagina, wherein the egg travels through the vagina into the cloaca from which it is laid. And the cloaca, this is the common external opening from which the contents of the urinary tract, the intestinal tract, and the reproductive tract exit the hen. On the other hand, on the figure that is shown below, this is the male reproductive organs in the domestic fowl, consists of 2 testes, each with a different duct that leads to or from the testes to the cloaca. So fowls do not have a penis, such as is found in other mammals, and the testes are bean-shaped bodies located against the backbone at the front of the kidney. Their size is not constant, and they become larger when the birds are actively mating, and the left testis is often larger than the right one. So on the inside of which is a small flattened area that is believed to correspond to the epididymis of the mammals. Okay, so next, there is a question which came first, the egg or the chicken? Okay, so by definition, the egg is a chicken egg. So the egg was first to make the story, and to make the story short, the egg came first, and then it is hatched a chicken. So hens carry a finite amount of eggs in their bodies from the moment they are born. And this means that they carry all the eggs in their body at birth. After birth, no new eggs are produced. Once the eggs in a hen's body are used up, she will not be able to lay any more eggs. And it will take about 4 months until a mature chicken starts to lay eggs. The first eggs that a chicken lays will be very small, and they will gradually increase in size as they get older. So before eggs develop, they are known as ova, and these future eggs are stored inside follicles, which are almost like little sacs that hold the eggs. The follicles and eggs are held inside a reproductive organ called the ovary. Although hens have 2 ovaries, only the left ovary is functional and releases egg. This is unusual as many other animals that have ovaries produce eggs and use both sides. However, with hens, the right ovary shrinks once the chick is born. Therefore, only only the left ovary is involved in the egg making process. And it is though that this process happens to make the hen's body more aerodynamics to help them fly. So once the ova has developed enough into an egg yolk, it is released by the ovary into the next phase of development. And this process of the ovary releasing the egg yolk is called ovulation. Okay, so for this one, or for this process, step one in the infundibulum. So during ovulation, the ovary releases the egg yolk into a reproductive organ called the oviduct. And the first section of the oviduct is called the infundibulum. And this is where fertilization of the egg yolk by the rooster sperm takes place. And the egg yolk stays in the infundibulum for about 15 minutes. Okay, so step two in the process of this yolks and egg whites. So the second section of the oviduct and the second stage of making the egg is inside the region called the magum. Here, the protein that make up the egg white are added to the yolk, and it can take about 3 hours. Okay, step three, the shell membrane, which is the third step in this process, is where the proteins and materials needed for the shell membrane are added. And this occurs in a region called the isthmus and takes about an hour. Okay, so finally the egg reaches the uterus. And from here, the egg will take about 24 hours to develop the eggshell. And it is the longest step of the egg development process. Okay, now finally, the fully developed egg is rotated and positioned large side outwards in the vagina. So this process is called ovoposition. Once the hen is comfortable and ready to lay, the egg will be pushed out of the vagina, and this is called the cloaca or the vagina. So once the cycle is completed, the egg is safely laid. The system is given about 30 minutes of rest time before starting or restarting again. Okay, so here is the reproductive tract of chicken, showing the passage of egg from where it came from, going out to the cloaca, and on the right is the chicken egg anatomy. So let's take up the anatomy of the egg one by one. So the eggshell, it is made of calcium carbonate. And next is the outer or inner shell membranes, and they are found immediately after the shell in the inner side of the egg. Next is the air cell. The air space is found between the outer and the inner shell membranes at the larger end of an egg. And next is the chelaza. These are dark spiral ropes of egg white, and they hold the yolk in place at the center of the egg. And the white part is the albumen, which is composed of water and contains around 40 different types of proteins. Okay, and the yolk. This is the innermost part of the egg, and its color is between yellow and deep orange, depending on the breed of the chicken and the type of the feed given to the chicken. The yolk of an egg contains more proteins, vitamins, fats, and minerals than the abdomen. Okay, now moving on to the next topic, which is the poultry breeding, which refers to the mating of poultry for either maintaining or increasing the current flock, or for selecting specific individuals for improvement in one or more characteristics. Okay, the sex hormones of chicken are indicated as ZZ in male and ZW in female. And the females determine the sex of the offspring, unlike in mammals wherein the male determine the sex of the offspring, and the sex hormones are indicated as XY and XX for male and female respectively. Okay, so Here are shown to you the genetics of comb type. We have the rose, single cushion, V-comb, buttercup, carnation, strawberry pea, and walnut. And it is necessary that we have to determine what breed shall we raise based on many considerations such as adaptability, purpose, and others. And so, therefore, we have to apply the principles of selection. Selection is defined as the process of allowing an organism to become desired and ideal parents for the next generation. There are two types of selection. Natural selection. This is nature selects individuals from mating or for mating in flocks by preferential mating, as in cases of random mating. And the other type of selection is artificial selection. This is the selection applied by humans with record and methods and involves intra-population and interpopulation selection. And in selection of egg type line, it is suitable to select egg type at 10 to 14 weeks. So chicks are sexed at day old to remove the undesirables, to reduce cost. And to do so, sexing is determined through the shape of the wings. So if the wings are on one-step curve shape, they are male. And if the wings are two-step curve shape wing, they are female. So to practice this, we have to have a job training and the hatchery to train ourselves and be expert in sexing BOC. So let us now progress on to broiler production. So as shown here in these figures, in the Philippines, almost all parts of the chicken are made into delicacies. So the intestine, this is known in our country as isaw. The chicken feet is known as Adidas. Maybe in your country, it is known as Nike. In ours, it is known as Adidas. So figure upper left is the breaded fried esophagus. Years ago, we don't eat esophagus, but now we eat esophagus. And below, it is the head, wings, and on the lower left is the pygostyle. Just like the esophagus, we don't eat pygostyle before, but now we eat pygostyle because it's very delicious. And so these are all popular street foods in our country. So the reason why poultry production is always on top. Okay, and it is also the favorite among fast foods because it is easy to cook and prepare. And these are the big commercial poultry industries in our country, like Magnolia, Bounty, Bounty Fresh, Foster Foods, and many others. Okay, so as farmers and veterinarians, it is part of our role and mandate to produce healthy and sufficient food supply for our growing population. And it is our responsibility as veterinarians and farmers to produce healthy supply of protein to mankind from farm to market. And in putting up a commercial poultry farm, this is one of the requirements for broiler housing, which should be in an agricultural zone away from the residential area, at least 1 kilometer, a minimum of 1 hectare with electricity, water source, and accessible with an all-weather road. Okay, so there are 3 types of housing. One is the conventional type, and most of the poultry houses in the world are conventional or open-sided. And that is, they rely on the free flow of air through the house for ventilation. Certain requirements must be met if such a ventilated house is to provide an adequate environment. Next type of housing is the upgraded or retrofitted type. This is an improved conventional type provided with upper and lower deck to provide more stocks. And the third type of housing is the tunnel ventilated farm. This is a controlled environment house. This is one This one is in which inside conditions are maintained as near as possible to the bird's optimum requirements. Doing so usually necessitates a completely enclosed, insulated house with no windows. Air is removed from the house by exhaust fans and fresh air is brought in through intake openings. So artificial light rather than natural daylight is used to eliminate the interior, or yes, the interior. So this is the setup of a tunnel ventilated housing. So ventilation by definition is the act of supplying fresh air to an enclosed space to get rid of the spent air. And tunnel ventilation is the movement of an air from one end through the entire length of the building at a higher velocity. So this is the inside of the tunnel ventilated house. And this is the ideal layout of a farm, is the east-west orientation to ensure an even distribution of sunlight throughout the day. So the following are structures needed in the farm. Perimeter fence to enclose the farm for security. Staff house where caretakers and farm staff are housed for the rest of the production period. The guard house for the security guards, the powerhouse or generator set for the generator set, the elevated water tank, mortality pit for the dead birds, and of course the broiler production house. So these are the ventilation basics. So we have listed here 3 ventilation basics. The minimum ventilation, which is used for younger flocks to provide exchange of air without over ventilating and then wasting the brooding. The transition ventilation, which allow better air exchange rate inside without high air velocity of air, and the tunnel ventilation used for warm to hot weather conditions for older and bigger birds. Okay, so shown to you here are samples of heaters. And here are also the different kinds of feed containers. So we have feed silo, main hopper, and mini hopper. And the automatic and manual feeders. So here, the upper figure is the automatic and the lower is the manual feeder. So here also we have the nipple drinkers, and of course the water tank, which is very important. So for day-old to 5-day-old, drinker must be at eye level. For 6 to 28 days old, level of drinker must be at the top of the head. And at 29 days old, level of drinker must be slightly above head level. And why it is so always above the head? This is so that the birds will have to stretch its head and stand when it drinks. So here are the reasons why we have to medicate. So why we have to medicate? It is necessary for the nutrients and vitamins and antibiotics if needed, and other supplements that can help on the well-being of the broilers. So here is a sample medication program or guide. Notice that on the 19th day, medication is already withheld or withdrawn to allow withdrawal of medication at least 2 weeks before harvest. Okay? Regular farm visit of a veterinarian is very necessary to check on the conditions of the flock and the overall operation. And I would like to mention our successful veterinarian who is practicing in broiler production or poultry production, Dr. Orag or Dr. Nico Orag. Okay, so visit monitoring is very important. And so in the previous slides, we discussed about the materials and equipment and some standards in broiler farming. And so now let us move on to the preparation of the housing. So before loading, the poultry house must be prepared, and in preparation, there are 3 series of disinfection. First Disinfection is phenol-based. Second disinfection is aldehyde-based. And third and final disinfection is the aerial-based, and this is done 3 hours prior to arrival. However, if there was a history of disease of flock, 21 days rest of the farm is observed. And of course, for the source of the day-old chick, we must purchase the chicks from the reliable supplier. The day-old chicks must weigh 40 grams and check the DOC if there are some abnormalities. Weak or dead chicks, check the chicks after 8 hours and 12 hours to find out if their crop is filled. So before arrival of the DOC, the house must be preheated at least 24 hours, and the chick's temperature must be ranging from 39.4 to 40.5 degrees centigrade. Check the water supply, and it must be clean and fresh. Feeds must also be dust-free and crumble or mini pellets. So from 0 to 7 days of age, chicks should have 23 hours of light and 1 hour of dark. So avoid drops and observe chick behavior to know the environmental conditions are correct. And so to summarize, the following should be checked during the breeding period: temperature, clean water supply, ventilation, light source or intensity, and access to feeds. And not to forget the observation of the overall behavior of the chicks to find out the environmental conditions are correct. Okay, so in this slide, take a close look at the schematic distribution of the chicks in the brooder. The yellow dots represents the chicks. So as mentioned, regularly assess the chick behavior on the brooding area. So if the temperature is too low, the chicks crowd to the brooder and they are noisy. And if the chicks are noisy, they make noise, but they make no noise, stick, pant, head and wings drop and spread, and they stay away under the brooding area. The temperature is too high. If they stay in one corner or area, it may be influenced by draft or uneven distribution of light. And if the chicks are evenly spread and noise level is slightly contentment, temperature is correct. So in cases where there is brooding lapses, this results to high mortality, uneven chick sizes, and upon necropsy, even after 7 days, unabsorbed yolk can be observed. And they are even susceptible to diseases. And finally, overall performance is low and low income. So in feeding, chicks are fed chick crumble from day 1 to 14, starter crumble from day 15 to 20, grower crumble or pellet from day 21 to 29, and finisher from day 30 to harvest, which is usually 32 days. Feeding is ad libitum or without limit because they are intended for meat. So it is necessary that we have to record the feed consumption and mortality. Recording is done daily, and weekly parameters are also checked to obtain the average live weight, mortality, bugs per thousands, and feed conversion ratio. So light program must also be observed, and presenting to you is the standard lighting program. So varying light intensity affect broiler activity for optimum feed consumption, muscle and skeletal development, and enhance immune system development. Application varies on several factors such as house design, breed, climatic condition, and many others. Okay, so harvest commenced once the desired weight or required weight is met. This usually starts at day 28 and finished at day 32 or 33 as per requirement. So secure documents prior to harvest, such as shipping permit and veterinary health certificate. And also observe the proper handling and number of harvesters as recommended. So progressing on to layer production. Okay, you may wonder why farm security is highlighted. And that is because basically they are similar to what have been discussed earlier. And so we shall proceed to the topics mentioned in these slides, such as documents needed to start a commercial layer farm, layer production, and egg production. And as we all are aware of, it is a common knowledge that egg is the most popular dish every breakfast. So no matter how the price of eggs go up, egg is always the favorite breakfast. And it is used in several dishes and delicacies as adds-on. And so we cannot go away without egg in our household. And so, oh, I'm sorry. And so, this is the list of documents needed for farm operation. So we have, we should secure documents from the local government unit in our country. These are the documents needed in farm operation. From the local government units, the Department of Environment and Natural Resources, from Bureau of Animal Industry, and other permits that are required by the locality. Okay, so the ready-to-lay birds are ready to lay at 16 weeks. And I'm sorry, I sleep the first, wait, okay, so this is the next slide. So these are the materials and equipment needed for layer production. So we have the layer, the feeds, the water, light, and of course the building, or yes, the building. Okay, so the ready to lay birds are ready to lay at 16 weeks. That is 4 months old. And by then, at the time of their arrival, they are expected to weigh 1.1 kilos, the average. The test the weight is done every week during the colder time of the day and at 16 weeks up to 90 weeks. A laying hen will produce eggs for several years, but it is only economical to keep the layers for 18 months. So egg production commences at about 22 weeks of age, rises sharply, reaching a peak at about 32 to 35 weeks of age, and then gradually declines at the rate of half week. And the following are the criteria for ready-to-lay birds. So they must have a weight of 1.1 kilogram average. They should have clean feathers, bright eyes, active, and lumpo. They should not be lumpo. Okay, and these are the choices for RTL, which are most popular in the Philippines. And we have the Loman layers, the decal white layers, and the Babcock white layers. And so, upon loading of the RTL, be sure that the building has been repaired, electricals were checked and functional, and disinfected. Source of water is effective. Feeds are ready and sufficient. Availability of vitamin C and electrolytes, B complex, and the flock will be flushed for at least several days to regain their strength for the transport, acclimatization for efficient production. So feeds may be commercial or own mix, which is mixed by the owner with his own formulation. So these are the advantages and disadvantages of commercial feeds. For the advantages of commercial feeds, it is ready to feed. You don't have to maintain a feed mill, management, and manpower, as well as electricity cost, and one-time purchasing in 1 month. On the other hand, the disadvantages are the quality of the raw materials used in commercial feeds and logistic problems such as how was it handled or made or stored, and other concerns for its vitality. On the other hand, the advantages of own mix are you are aware of the quality of the micro and the macro ingredients. You maintain the freshness of the feeds. You will be able to adjust the base on the availability of the raw materials and prices and reduce the feed cost. On the other hand, the disadvantages are human errors such as in formulation, handling, and many others, and some uncontrollable instances or circumstances. So feed mill and warehouse maintenance, prices of raw materials are dwindling or in pendulum. Sometimes prices are reasonable, but oftentimes it goes up unnoticed. And so we have three types of feeds. We have the mash, we have the crumble, and we have the pellet. So you are common to these kinds of feeds already. And so you also have to watch out for the kinds of feeds that you have. So you must know what is old and what is new and adulterated and fresh. And the average feed intake per bird. So upon arrival of the ready-to-lay birds, usually starts at 60-gram feed intake and every week. And it will increase at additional 5 grams up to 110 grams. And we should control the weight. Okay, so for feeding time, we feed the birds 3 times a day. So at 5:30 a.m., 10 a.m., and 3:30 p.m. So if we have 10,000 birds needing 100 grams per bird, we need 22 bags per day per allocation. Okay, water is very important. So among the nutrients, water is very important. The most important, I think. Meaning, among all the nutrients, I believe water is number one because one can survive with water alone for several days without food. But of course, we will not deprive the birds of or our livestock without feed. So we really need water. And so this is the water requirement for our livestock. So 60 gallons of water per 1,000 birds in 24 hours. Okay, so moving on to lighting program for layers. Why is light important to birds? These are the reasons. Improve health. It boosts immune functions. It the growth rate and reproductive hormones of the birds, and the birds are active and alert. So if they have 12 hours of light from 6 to 6 p.m. And provision of another 4 hours with an artificial light at 4 a.m. and at 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. So 60 watt is in every 100 square foot or 6 to 7 inches above the level of the top cage. And as to the building for layer production, so we have conventional. So we have 2 kinds of conventional natural ventilation and pump-powered ventilation. Maybe I will not be discussing to this anymore because I have already taken this up in the previous slides. So this is the picture of conventional building for our layers. This one. Okay. So we also have another kind of building for layers, the climate control or tunnel ventilated. So I will not be discussing to you anymore this one because you have already seen this in the previous slides. Okay, so showing you is the standard or an example of climate control or tunnel ventilation. Okay, so this one shows you the standard weight of table eggs according to the Department of Industry in the Philippines. So the biggest one is called the jumbo, which weighs 70 grams and above. And the smaller one is the 40 grams, it does not no weight at all. And then the peewee, which weighs 40 to 45 grams. Okay, so having all this and correct husbandry, layers produce eggs for human consumption enough to supply the demand. And so we are done with poultry production, broiler and layer. And I hope you are still with me because we still have one topic, which is the swine production. Okay, so aside from poultry production, which is the most accessible and available source of protein, pork comes next. Though the industry suffered because of the African swine fever, we are now slowly and surely coming to the trough and on the road to recovery. And so what is the importance of swine or pig? For pork-eating countries like the Philippines, pork is a high demand. It is a piggy bank because it gives income and as a secondary or primary source of income, additional livelihood for smallholder raisers. And so, what are the advantages and disadvantages of pig raising? For advantages of pig raising, they are effective converters of feeds into human food, meaning to say they efficiently convert feeds into meat. They are also prolific. In other words, they produce large number of young. And for backyard raisers, it needs only a small amount of investment if they only raise one or two. And as mentioned a while ago, it is easily converted into cash, especially the winners. The cowed sows, boars, stags can be sold and converted to cash, and it has high dressing percentage, and it gives additional income. For the disadvantages, just like we have experienced the ASF, we experience losses due to diseases, adulteration of feed supply, dwindling market price, requires a lot of labor, and has unacceptable odor. So, in spite of the disadvantages, there are still a lot of swine raisers in our country, both big and small industries who want to get back nowadays and reload because of the demand and, as mentioned, a scam augmentation. So these are the production system being practiced in our country and in pig producing countries. So Southward Enterprise, Growing Finishing Enterprise, and Boar for Hire Enterprise. Okay, so for Southward Enterprise, farrow to feeder operation. The producer engaged in this type of operation starts with pregnant gilt or sow to produce gilts or weanlings and pigs, which are sold to other raisers who grow them until the marketable weight is achieved. And we have also the farrow to finish operation, wherein the producer starts with gilt or sow to produce pigs or weanlings and until slaughter weight is achieved. And then we have the farrow to breeder operation, wherein the operator or the producer starts with pregnant gilt or sow and to produce breeder stocks and specifically junior boars and replacement gilts. Okay, so another one is growing finishing enterprise. The swine raiser in this type of operation is again, it starts with feeder or weanling and carries them into to become slaughter weight of about 80 to 95 kilograms. And most of the small swine holders in the Asian region are in growing finishing operations. And for growing finishing enterprise, the profit in this operation can be influenced by availability and continuous supply of good quality feeder pigs, cost of feeds and feeder pigs, capacity of the operator in avoiding losses from diseases, pests, and other animal health hazards, and the price which the buyers are willing to pay for the finished hogs. So boar for hire enterprise, the producer in this type of operation starts with a young boar, which he grows and trains to breeder age, and the poor is used to breed the gilts or sow in the community for a fee, and the fee may be in cash or in kind, whichever is acceptable to the customer. So these are the factors to consider in the selection of production system. So the amount of capital, labor, and land available, the level of management and marketing skills are needed, the social and environmental implication associated with manure management. So moving on, we have to, or before putting up a swinery or piggery, we have to decide what kind of breed to raise. So we have here the common breeds of pigs. And first in our list is Berkshire. I will not read the characteristics anymore because it will take me very long. And I have an allotment of only 40 minutes. So we have this next one is the Duroc. Next is the Hampshire. Next is the Landrace, the large white or Yorkshires, and the Petrine, the Poland China. And among the breeds that I mentioned, the Duroc, the large white, the Landrace, and the Petrine are the most common breeds that are raised in our country. So moving on to pig housing. Here is a floor plan of a commercial pig housing wherein cages are arranged accordingly to phases of growth. On the left are the farrowing and nursery pens opposite each other, and then pens for pregnant and dry sows and the fatteners. Observe that they are arranged systematically and accordingly. So a pig house must be designed to provide the herd comfort in general for the prevention and or control of diseases, proper disposal of the waste. And as mentioned in the previous slide, the location of the piggery must be strategic. In other words, select a site away from the residential areas and distant from other farms. Secure zoning and permits from government authorities and must be accessible. So a site or location like this is the ideal one, away from the residential areas and accessible. And in addition, consider the following in site selection for the availability of essential service, feeds, water and electricity, accessibility, and suitable surroundings such as drainage and manure disposal, distance from neighbors and other farms, compliance with local government policies like zoning and environmental considerations, and possibility of expansion. So a piggery needs sufficient water, so be sure that there is an abundant source of water for cleaning. The amount of water needed by the stocks for drinking as well as for bathing. So before putting up a piggery, secure permits from government authorities to legalize the establishment, the enterprise and operation like mayor's permit from the Department of Trade and Industry, Department of Environment and Natural Resources, and other permits from the local governments or from the locality. And these are the registration requirements needed in putting up a business like swine enterprise in our countries, such as business name, registration, barangay clearance, mayor's permit, and license or this is sanitary permit, BIR TIN, and environment compliance certificate. And in the registration requirement needed, is in putting up a business like swine enterprise. So the piggery farm must be accessible in whatever season of the year. In our country, we only have two weather seasons, the rainy and dry season. So the farm should be within reach any time of the year. And so the farm must be away from the residential areas because of the odors, the flies, the noise, and the pollution. And this is to avoid complaints from the neighbors and to comply with the resolutions of the locality. And as a rule, the piggery must be away from other farms to prevent cross-infection of diseases. So these are the considerations in building a farm. One is environmental control for ventilation and temperature. So a good ventilation removes odors, moisture, and excess heat. The temperature is also being
ada rezeki ni lu masak lebih sikit. Ni daging masak lemak cili api dengan nangka.
Excuse me, I think, oh, okay.
Okay, can I continue, Miss Iska?
Yeah, I think we got problems with the.
Okay, so
Okay, yes. Can I interrupt, Dr. Amar? We have like 5 minutes to go for your presentation. Okay.
yes, ma'am. So let me finish.
Yes, just continue. It's okay. Great.
Okay, so we also need labor requirements, and can I continue till the end, Miss Iska?
Yeah, I'm direct to talk with committee and he allowed to do that.
Okay,
it's
ma'am.
okay.
Okay, so
Okay, great.
so for we also need the feeding and dryness, sanitation, safety, and not to forget the rodents and bird control. And so progressing on, these are the equipment needed for our and tools. So we have feeders, drinking system, and we need also the orientation of the housing should be the east-west orientation. And in selecting boars, we need to select boars. We have to look for their sex characteristics. They should be masculine. They should have a clear, visible primary sex organs, and they should have like ideal testicle size. And these are the abnormal testicle sizes. So these are not desirable boars. And we should also consider the underlines. They should have teats, normal teats. And when selecting boars, there should be 6 months in selecting boars. Okay, so these are the regular board activities at 6 to 4 months selection, 6 to 7 months acclimatization, 7 to 8 months training, 8 to 12 months the collection of semen, and 12 months the collection is 2 to 3 times per week. And boars should be culled at 30 to 36 months. And boar usage, 2 boars per 15 sows for 2 services, and 1 service, 1 boar for 2 sows. Okay, and to summarize the boar, the proper management of boars returns big dividends to big producers. So many potential problems starting from selection up to culling largely contribute to the expenditure if not selected and prevented early. Okay, so for selection of gilts, just like in the selection of boars, they should be selected like selecting Miss Universe. They must have a strong back and legs and good body conformation. Okay, so I will make it faster. So here we should choose gilts with very, we don't choose gilts with a very small infantile vulva or abnormal vulva. So we have to look for this ideal vulva, proportional in size, and the tip pointing downward. So they should have well-developed underlines or mammary glands, and we should avoid having gills that have inverted or necrotic teats because these are not functional. Okay. They should, as I've said, they should have a good mothering ability, and they should have strong back fore and strong legs. So this is gilt management. This is the same as in boar. So we have to select gilt at 4 to 6 months, and we have to breed them when they are already 8 months old, and when the time they give birth, they are already 1 year old. So management of dry sow. So in management of dry sow, we keep the sow in good health and body condition. The lactation period not longer than 6 months. There should be no feed on weaning day, and newly weaned sow to paddock. They expose weaned sow to boar and check for heat for twice a day, because the sow may get into heat after 5 days of weaning or separating them from the weanlings or from the piglets. So breeding management. Okay, so we have two kinds of breeding: the natural mating and artificial insemination. Okay, so we also have to know the signs of estrus. So these are the signs of estrus. The most common sign of estrus is reddening of the vulva. The pigs are grunting. They are restless. But the most, or the surest sign of in heat is standing heat, wherein when you put pressure to the back, the sow or the gilt will stand still and ready for breeding. Okay, so management for pregnant sows. So this is the feeding management for pregnant sows. We have to give them 2 kilograms of feeds on the 21st day to avoid embryonic death, and on 22nd to 84 days, we have to give them still 2 kilograms. And for thin sows, we give them 2.5 to 3 kilograms. And for fat sows, we give them 1.5 kilograms, and we give them raw feeds to satisfy their cravings. Okay, and on 101 to 113 days, we give them 2 kilograms of feeds. And on the day of farrowing, we don't give them feeds, but if needed, we only give them a handful of feeds. So farrowing management. So we should know when the sow is about to farrow. So these are the signs of farrowing. The farrowing is said to have started when the sow exhibits restlessness, contraction, and mucous discharge with meconium. And farrowing may take place as little as an hour, but may also last for several hours. And the interval for piglets should be 15 minutes. And we should give attention to the sow while it is farrowing, because it might suffer from difficulty. And when the sow is having difficulty, we may assist in farrowing. So these are the procedures in assisting the sows at farrowing. So we have to wash the sow's vulva and the area surrounding the vulva to remove the dirt. Wash your hands and lubricate. Insert your clean and hand slowly using firm pressure into the vagina and move slowly towards the cervix. And once the hand can palpitate a piglet's head or hind legs, grabs the head or leg and slowly pull the piglet out. And in case you cannot palpate or the piglet, then and only then you can give oxytocin. Okay, so this is how the this is a figure which shows, or this is a picture that's showing you in assisting a sow that is suffering from difficulty or suffering from difficulty in farrowing. Okay, care and management of newborn piglets. So these are the piglet activities for day 0: disinfection of umbilical cord, cutting of needle teeth, tail docking, and ear tagging. And on up to 0 to 3 days, injection of iron because piglets are born anemic. 5 to 10 days, castration. 28 to 30, this is weaning period, wherein the piglets are now weighing supposed to be 6 to 8 kilograms body weight. And 30 to 60, vaccination with hog cholera. And we have to deworm the piglets 1 week after hog cholera vaccination. And on the first few days after farrowing, carefully observe for the any disease condition and inadequate milk production. And here we have to provide clean, dry, draft-free environment with temperature of 30 to 32 degrees centigrade. We should give extra care during the first 3 to 5 days and minimize crossings. So we have to assist the piglets to suckle, most especially on the first day to suckle the colostrum. Okay, so usually weaning or sow is separated from the piglets takes at day 28. And as long as the piglets are already capable of eating feeds and are in good condition, and at 3 to 5 days after weaning, the litters are transferred to the pen and ensure that they have fresh drinking water, enough space, and regroup only after a week. So these are the tips. So we also have to observe gradual shifting of feeds for a week. Should always be observed in changing the kind of feeds from example starter to grower. So in this figure, this shows you how to shift or gradually shift a feeds from starter to grower. And so we have to observe also pigs carefully and regularly to monitor if there is fighting. And so to avoid fighting, use pen wherein one of the leaders have already been housed. Give them toys to attract their attention. Then spray them with Krestel to avoid biting, and soon as they have accustomed to each other, stability is observed in or after 2 days. And after they have reached an average of 100 kilograms at 5 months, they can already be sold as slaughter pigs and at a price depending on the market trend, because market price is changing depending on the season of the year, wherein price usually is up when it is already near Christmas season, and we are now in a Christmas season in here. So price of pork is already up. So, well, I think this is all about it, and I want to extend my gratitude to Institute Technology Cebu November and the organizers of this event for allowing me to speak to you today. And sorry for extending my allowance. Thank you very much. And if you have any questions, please feel free to ask. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Amar. We know that this is a very complex about poultry, swine production, and maybe about the health management. This is a very complex system, from the beginning until the end. And we saw a lot of things that maybe it is also new from the ITS student and also lecturer and the academic staff that already enter in this session or in the YouTube link. And I think for the next agenda, I think we will have our second speakers also from Tarlac Agriculture University, Dr. Krestel Joy Isla or Dr. Joy. And for Dr. Joy is got a Doctor of Veterinary Medicine from the Tarlac College of Agriculture also, and Diploma in International Health Promotion, UP Open University UPLB. And right now is Master of International Health Promotion, UP Open University UPLB. And for the professional memberships, from the Philippine Veterinary Medical Associations and Philippine Association of Agriculturists and Philippine Society for the Study of Nature. And for the subject, this is about principle of surgeries and zoonosis, stereogenology, and so on. So today, Dr. Joy will talk about combating renin rabies amid COVID-19 pandemic, One Health approach. So I think for no further times, the time is yours, Dr. Joy. Yes.
Thank you, Mrs. Ka, for that introduction. Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, Indonesia, and good evening here in the Philippines. Please allow me to share my screen. Can you see now my PowerPoint presentation?
Yes, we already know, but maybe we need to slide share. Dr. Joy, did you have any problems with the slide? Hello.
Me, Dr.
Dr.
Krestel
Joy.
Joy. Do you need our assist to
Thank you.
share your presentation?
Yes, please. Can you hear me, Mrs. Ka?
Yes, we can hear you. However, your presentation is still in the title and not in the slideshow. Do you need our assist to do it?
Okay. So, yes, please. Yes.
Okay,
Yes,
okay, yes,
I
please.
do need.
Just a moment, I will assist you to present your slideshow.
Okay, it is already on the screen. However, I think Dr. Joy have some difficulty in connection also. Hello, Dr. Joy. Hello.
Hello, Dr. Joy Isla. Dr. Krestel Joy, can you hear my voice?
I think Dr. Joy already out from the Zoom meeting. Actually, this is already the Zoom. Hello. Still unmute, Dr. Joy.
Yes, sorry for that. Sorry for that, Mrs. Ka.
It's okay. We just I'm just feeling that there's maybe like a hard connection, but it's okay right now. Is it correct for the presentation?
Yes, please.
Great. Yes. Okay. So please allow me to ask you once again, maybe for 30 or more minutes, like 30 minutes to have this kind of presentation. Okay. Thank you. Please, Dr. Joy, time is yours.
Thank you again, Mrs. And thank you for waiting.
I think
Rabies amid the COVID-19. Can you hear me loud and clear?
yes, I think it is still no. We don't know how is other participant, but I cannot hear clearly in here. Like
Yeah,
maybe yes
with,
can.
us, Ibu Iska, Dr. Krestel Joy. I thought you have trouble in connection because we cannot hear you clearly.
Yes. I think you can stop a video, but not do not unmute. It's maybe reduce the stability. That's good.
Yes.
Yes.
Can you hear? Can you hear me now?
Excuse me, you're so weird. Apologize me to us. It looks like that, but this is more better to hear you. I know. How about that, Ibu Raini? Is that great to hear?
Yeah,
like now.
That's better.
More better.
Ibu Iska, thank you.
Great. So time is yours.
Thank you again. Sorry for that. So again, this afternoon is a One Health approach. The objectives of this lecture, at the end of the lecture, you are expected to determine the rabies, its prevalence, diagnosis, prevention, and control. We have to identify the factors affecting the prevention and control of rabies. We have to recognize the impact of COVID-19 pandemic on rabies, and of course, to acquire knowledge in preventing and controlling rabies through One Health approach. Next slide, please, Ms. Rainey. Okay, for the outline of discussion, of course, we have to discuss what rabies is, its prevalence, the diagnosis, prevention, and control of rabies, the factors affecting the prevention and control of rabies, the knowledge, the attitudes, and practices towards rabies. And of course, we will discuss the impact of COVID-19 on the rabies and the One Health approach to combat canine rabies amid the COVID-19 pandemic. Next slide, please. So let's have a review on what rabies is. So rabies, also known as the hydrophobia, is a viral disease that affects the central nervous system of a warm-blooded animals, including the humans. And rabies is an ancient disease, and this rabies virus is found in the saliva of rabid, domestic, and wild animals. So let us remember that not all animals have this rabies virus, but they can acquire this rabies. So just only the rabid animals have this kind of virus, and it is generally transmitted through the bite of an infected animal. And this rabies disease causes an inflammation of the brain and almost fatal once symptoms develop. And this rabies virus may affect the part of the brain that regulates the behavior, causing the domestic and wild animals to attack without the fear of provocation. So for the next slide, this is the structure of the rabies virus. The name rhabdo comes from the Greek word, and it identifies the characteristics bullet or rod shape of the viruses. And the typical characteristics bullet shape is for 45 to 100 nanometer in diameter, or 100 to 400 nanometer long, and this virus enveloped with spike-like projections. Next slide, please. Okay, thank you. And again, the virus size ranges in size from approximately 20 to 300 nanometer. This means that the majority of viruses can only be seen through the electron microscope. Next slide, please. Again, this is the structure of the rabies virus. As we can see, it envelopes with the different types of protein, including the G protein, the matrix protein, the N, the NS, and the L protein. And again, the virus is a bullet shape. It's from the genome of this virus is a single-stranded RNA. It is linear, non-segmented, negative sense, and envelope is present together with those spikes and has its RNA-dependent RNA polymerase. Next slide, please. For the G protein of this virus, it is the glycoprotein spike that it targets the neutralizing antibodies, and endocytosis is induced because the trimer is stabilized, which causes the molecule to be embedded in the membrane. Next slide, please. For the M or the matrix protein of the virus, this is a peripheral protein that lines the inner surface of the viral membrane. The nucleocapsid is the infectious ribonucleoprotein core. It is helical in structure, and the L and the NS protein are the RNA polymerase or transcriptase, and 60% of this genome is in mass of this virus. Next slide, please. Okay, this is the classification or the properties of this virus. Rabies virus under the family Rhabdoviridae under the genus Lyssa virus. These rhabdoviruses are very widely distributed in nature, but remember that rabies does not infect insects. This rabies is a severe viral disease that can affect all mammals, including humans, and infection results in damage to the nervous system. The disease almost always ends in death, and this rabies occurs worldwide. And these are the animals that can give rabies. Next slide, please, Ms. Rainey. These are the animals affected with or can acquire this rabies virus, including the dogs, of course, the cats, the raccoons, the bats, the ferrets, the skunks, the groundhogs, and some are the opossums can acquire this virus. The antigenic properties. Only one serotype of rabies virus, but different strains are observed. This G glycoprotein is a major factor in neuroinvasiveness and pathogenicity. The spikes elicit neutralizing antibody in animals, and anti-serum against nucleocapsid is used for immunofluorescence. So this rabies virus can be stable in the environment for weeks under 4 degrees Celsius, can be stable for years under negative 70 degrees Celsius, and can be inactivated by carbon dioxide, or also can be killed by the UV or sunlight, the heat, the lighted solvents, the trypsin, the detergents, and the extreme pH. Next slide, please. So again, this is the structure of the rabies virus. Next slide, please. For the replication in the cycle of infection and replication of the virus, the viral RNA uncoats in the cytoplasm of infected animals or cells. The genome is transcribed by a virion-associated RNA-dependent RNA polymerase. Then the viral RNA is then translated into individual viral proteins. The replication occurs with synthesis of positive stranded RNA templates for the production of progeny negative stranded RNA. Next slide, please. So the replication includes the binding, penetration, and transcription. For the binding, there is an identified receptor in which there is a binding via tetramers. The penetration occurs by the endocytosis, and the nucleocapsid enters the cytoplasm. For the transcription, the polymerase makes 5 mRNAs, and these mRNAs are methylated and polyadenylated. Next slide, please. And for the replication, there is a transcription of negative sense strand into positive sense. The transcription and translation is controlled by the N protein levels. And the G protein RMA is translated and transported to the cell surface. The G protein forms patches with which the M protein associates, and the negative strand RNA associate with the N, the L, and the NS proteins, forming the core nucleocapsids. And these nucleocapsids become more condensed as it interacts with the M protein. And in this figure, it shows the host cell infection, as I have mentioned earlier. So next slide, please. So for the rabies disease causes an inflammation of the brain and it's almost fatal once symptoms develop. Rabies virus may affect the part of the brain that regulates the behavior, causing the domestic and wild animals to attack without fear of provocation. That is why we call them as mad dog once they are infected with this rabies virus. And this rabies virus is most commonly transmitted through the bite of an infected mammal, all of which may be susceptible but to greatly varying degrees. The virus may enter the peripheral nervous system directly or may replicate in muscle tissue after entering the host, remaining at or near the site of introduction for most of the incubation period. However, the precise sites of viral sequestration remain unknown since neither antigen nor virus can usually be found in any organ during this phase. And the virus hides from the immune system and is not always recognized as antigen. As a consequence, no real immune response will develop. So the body does not always combat it. After a bite that breaks the skin, the saliva carrying the infection enters the body and the virus travels along the neutral pathways into the central nervous system. And it soon replicates and disperses into the brain, and then the brain becomes inflamed and many functions of the CNS are affected, including the changes of behavior of the infected animal. Next slide, please.
Excuse me, next slide, please, Ibu Raini. Yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. And the incidence is rare in humans. However, there's increasing in raccoon population in North America. There's endemic in dog population in the third world. And the target organ site of this virus is the brain, as we all know. And the detection, the culture from the brain of the suspected animal vector and the direct stain of a conjunctiva or brain biopsy will with fluorescent antibody to detect this virus. For the pathogenesis of this rabies, next slide, please. Virus may enter the peripheral nervous system via the neuromuscular junctions and moves rapidly repeatedly to the CNS for replication. Symptoms may develop shortly thereafter. The virus then begins to pass centrifugally to many tissues and organs such as the salivary glands. So first it multiplies in the muscle or the connective tissue at the site of inoculation, and then it enters in the peripheral nerves at the neuromuscular junction and spread up the CNS. It may enter the CNS without local replication, then it multiply in CNS and induce progressive encephalitis, and then this virus spreads through peripheral nerves, salivary glands, and other tissues, and the highest titers found in the submaxillary salivary gland. Next slide, please. So the susceptibility may depend on age, the genetic background, the immune status of the victim, the strain involved, the amount of inoculum, the severity of lacerations, and distance of point of entry to CNS. It produces negative bodies which filled with the viral nucleocapsids in infected nerve cells, but not observed in 20% of cases of this rabies. And the variants can be found in the pancreas, kidney, heart, retina, and cornea. Next slide, please. And next slide. Yeah, okay, thank you. And in dogs and cats, the virus shed at most 10 days before the onset of signs and during the clinical signs, and usually found in saliva 1 to 3 days before and during the clinical signs. Next slide, please. So these are the common signs and symptoms of canine rabies or rabies in dog. So it includes the unusual restlessness, the animal has a fever, dilatation of pupils, watchful, apprehensive look, biting at inanimate objects, aimless running and unprovoked aggressiveness, difficulty of swallowing followed by a change in the bark or howling sounds of animal. So in canine rabies, we have two forms, the furious type and the paralytic or the dumb type. In the furious type, the animal shows changes from friendly disposition into wild, vicious behavior. The animal also suffers from whining or as if they are in pain. There's a foaming of the mouth. If unleashed, they bite objects within its reach. If caged, they bite even the cage. They have difficulty in eating and drinking, restlessness, runs aimlessly, bite anyone or anything on its path, and they snaps at imaginary objects. And the dumb type, this is a complete opposite of this furious type. The animal becomes lethargic and depressed. They hide in dark, quiet places, sluggish or sleepy. They refuses to eat. They appears to be staring at a distant object. The lower jaw drops, the tongue hangs, and the dog salivates continuously. They have difficulty in swallowing or drinking, lameness, difficulty in breathing, and they die suddenly without any signs. Next slide, please. So in human, these are the symptoms of rabies virus in human. The victim has a fever, anorexia, nausea and vomiting, headache, pain or paresthesia at sight bite. They have the signs of nervous system dysfunction such as hyperactivity, disorientation, hallucination, seizures, and paralysis. Next slide, please. The rabies virus causes an acute infection of the CNS. In human, we have 5 general stages recognized in human infection. It includes the incubation, the prodrome, the acute neurologic period, coma, and death. The incubation period is exceptionally variable, ranging from fewer than 10 days to longer than 2 years, but it's usually 1 to 3 months. So in the prodromal phase in human, it's the lead up over a period of 2 to 3 days. The patient may have a fever, vomiting, and loss of appetite, headache, and pain at the site of the original bite. The autonomic nervous system is affected. This manifests itself as copious salivation and sadness in human. Next slide, please. In the younger stage, the patient will appear restless and irritable and display signs of aggression. And the victim may appear disoriented and may develop seizures, of course. And this stage lasts for about 2 to 4 days. In the neurological stage or paralytic stage, at this stage, the paralysis develops, usually beginning in the body part that was bitten. The victim may also suffer from paralysis in the throat and face, making swallowing difficult. Increasingly uncontrolled movement, confusion, and delirium, and the person affected becomes terrified of water and becomes anxious and hyperactive. And this stage lasts 2 to 4 days. These are some of the rabies patients here in the Philippines. For the prevalence, let's move on to the prevalence of rabies. The rabies becomes a burden of disease worldwide with an estimate of 59,000 deaths annually according to the CDC in 2020. It includes the Philippines, of course, in that data. Next slide, please. And these canine rabies cycles are present in many parts of the world, including Philippines, Mexico, and the major source of human rabies worldwide is the dog or the canine. In Asia, it was estimated that there had been 35,172 human deaths annually due to rabies. In all of these cases, 59.99% were found in India. In Africa, it was estimated that there had been 21,476 human deaths yearly, with the highest cause of human mortality. Moreover, there had been 229 human deaths in the Middle East and 1,875 human deaths in Central Asia every year, according to the World Health Organization. And in the Philippines, rabies remains a public health problem here in our country. Approximately, there are 300 to 600 Filipinos die of rabies every year. And the Philippines ranked third worldwide in rabies incidence in the year 2000. About 10,000 dogs are believed to be infected with the disease each year, and dog again remains the principal reservoir of rabies in the country. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Again, in the Philippines, the most common source of infection are the dogs. And how to diagnose, prevent, and control this rabies virus. Next slide, please. Okay, thank you. For the rabies diagnosis, we use the electron microscopy. The brain of suspected animals are submitted, and there's an impression smears to look for negri bodies or cell stain. We use also the Bow's inoculation test, and of course the FA or the fluorescent antibodies. So the next picture shows the negri bodies. Next slide, please. Next slide. So this is the FA or the fluorescent antibody detects rabies antigen on brain tissue. For the diagnosis, in the postpartum, we use the fresh brain. So remember, it's not frozen. So we use the fresh brain, and it detects the antigen using the above mentioned techniques. And there's no reliable antemortem test for rabies virus for the detection of the antigen of this rabies. In humans, also no reliable antemortem test, but is attempted if rabies is suspected. The current diagnostic tools are not suitable for detecting rabies infection before the onset of the clinical disease, and unless the rabies specific signs of hydrophobia or helophobia are present, the clinical diagnosis may be difficult. In human rabies, the human rabies can be confirmed intravitam and postmortem by virus diagnostic techniques that detect whole viruses, viral antigens, or nucleic acids in infected tissues. Next slide, please. So this is the campaign poster of the Department of Health here in the Philippines, responsible pet ownership for rabies-free Philippines. And the next picture showing the rabies patient in the Philippines. Next slide, please. Let's move on to the pre and the post exposure prophylaxis and humans. So who will decide to have this prophylaxis? Of course, the persons at risk or the victim, the physicians, the relevant department heads, or of course the parents for the minor victims. And we have to consider different factors in getting or having this pre and post exposure prophylaxis. Of course, we will consider the biting species, the geographic location, the circumstances, the type of exposure, and the category of the bite. And of course, we will follow, or they have to follow the recommendation of the World Health Organization. Next slide, please. This is the recommended post-exposure prophylaxis for rabies infection from the World Health Organization. So for the category 1, touching or feeding animals, leaks on intact skin. So there's no post-exposure measures. Under the category 2, nibbling of uncovered skin, minor scratches or abrasions without bleeding. So immediate vaccination and local treatment of the wound should be done. And also for the category 3, single or multiple transdermal bites or scratches, leaks on broken skin, contamination of mucous membrane with saliva from leaks, exposure to bats. There's immediate vaccination, administration of rabies immunoglobulin, and the local treatment of the wound also be done. So why do we need to have this pre-exposure prophylaxis and serological testing guides for human? Of course, is to prevent the spread of the virus in human victim. Next slide, please. Okay, for the immunity and prevention, 99% of infections end fatally. High-risk individuals should receive preventive immunization, of course. Post-exposure prophylaxis immediately done if exposure is believed to be dangerous. So we have to use the passive administration of antibodies and use of inactivated rabies virus recommended by our Department of Health or Ministry of Health. Next slide, please. Next slide. Okay, this is the recommended schedule of the. Okay, thank you. This is the recommended schedule given by the World Health Organization. So we have to have the immunization at day 0, day 3, day 7, day 14, and day 20. And the next slide showing the other regimens or ways on how to prevent the spread of disease. It includes, of course, the washing of the wounds, and also going to the clinic or hospital to have the post prophylaxis. Next slide, please. Next slide. Next, please. Next, please. Okay, for the management of animals that bite humans, the shedding prior to clinical signs, this period is basis for the 10-day observation period if a healthy dog or cat or parrot bites a human. And recommended that vaccine that be given during the observation period, and if signs compatible with rabies develop during the observation period, animal euthanized, and the brain must be submitted for rabies testing. And for the prevention and control of rabies, let us take from the developed countries. So I will tackle this later. So we have to also to follow the animal control laws and of course the domestic animal vaccination. And for the control, of course, these are the some ways on how to control the rabies virus. Of course, we have to have the vaccination of domestic animals, the control of stray animals, wildlife vaccination programs, surveillance, and rabies cases should be reported to the authority. And according to the study of Fluorescent 1999, the study said that the first step in preventing rabies is by educating people on how to reduce the risk of contracting rabies from dogs. So this is the education. So we have to have our education campaign and awareness to the community for them to know the ways on how to prevent. And there are some factors affecting the prevention of rabies. This is from the study here in the Philippines. One factor is the minimal experience in dog handling and vaccination, lack of funding support from the government, involvement of the community. The cost of rabies vaccine is one of the factors in preventing this virus. Next slide, please. The factors also includes the willingness of owners to have their dogs vaccinated, the cost of rabies diagnosis as well as the process of rabies diagnosis, the poor communication between the veterinary sector and the communities. And the community knowledge, attitudes, and practices are important both for the prevention of human deaths due to rabies and for the prevention of the disease in animals. Knowledge refers to the nature, manifestation, and prevention of rabies. The attitude refers to the thoughts and feelings related to rabies prevention, and the practices refers to the action related to the rabies prevention. Next slide, please. So these are some of the studies regarding the knowledge, attitudes, and practices of the community towards rabies. In South Central Bhutan, the knowledge, attitude, and practice of the community on rabies is high. So the people of Galepu or in Bhutan had a positive attitude towards the prevention and control of rabies. However, there are some knowledge and practice gaps in the community. In Tanzania, there is an increasing knowledge regarding wound washing, seeking post-exposure prophylaxis, and the need to vaccinate dogs would likely result in more effective prevention of rabies. In Sri Lanka, there is a difference in the attitudes and pet care practices. The attitudes and practices of the respondents toward rabies may reflect from the inaccessibility of facilities and the lack of services. And in Western India, the positive attitude of residents from the high and the middle socio-economic levels toward free-roaming dogs could be used to encourage the adoption of dogs and responsible ownership. Next slide, please. So now, what are the impact of COVID-19 on rabies? That's why I choose this rabies as a topic, because the COVID-19 has a great impact of the status of rabies in our country. Okay, so the recent COVID-19 pandemic led to uncertainty and severe health and economic concerns. Due to the anxiety and stress brought by the pandemic to the people, studies indicated that owning a companion animal such as a dog or cat has benefits for good mental health. The study also suggests that there are potential benefits of this human-dog relationship during the COVID-19 pandemic. The majority of the studies indicate that interactions with animals may help with depression, anxiety, and stress, in particular under stress-prone conditions. The companion animals provide companionship, it improves mood, and may ease loneliness. The human-animal interactions may even improve peer-to-peer social relationships, as well as enhance feelings of respect, trust, and empathy between the people. However, the behavioral problems in dogs were reported to be one of the main reasons for the abandonment of dogs to shelters. And next slide, please. And this COVID-19 pandemic interrupted two key rabies elimination activities, including the mass dog vaccination and the canine rabies surveillance. Changes in city life during quarantine may also have impacted rabid dog survival in several ways. Fewer people out in public compounded with increased difficulty in travel to and from health posts, and disrupted health post hours led to reports of suspected rabid dogs decreasing to almost zero. Second, even if a rabid dogs were reported, the COVID-19 protocols disrupted rabies response teams, delaying euthanization and removal of suspected rabid dogs. Third, a decrease in vehicle traffic during the COVID-19 lockdown led to increased survival time of disoriented dogs that otherwise would have been hit by a cars. And another impact of COVID-19 rabies, the low vaccination rate against this virus. So in this figure, it shows the vaccination status of dogs in Santa Ignacia, Tarlac. Here in the Philippines, this 2021, so only 15.56% of dog population are vaccinated, and 84.44% are not vaccinated against rabies. So what are the reasons of the owners? So one of the reasons is that they are afraid to go out from their homes because of the COVID-19 infection. One reason is the cost of the rabies vaccine. That is why they are just waiting for the free rabies vaccination to be given or to be administered by the local government unit in their locality. Next slide, please. Okay. So what are the approaches on how to prevent and control this rabies?
Excuse me, Dr. Joy.
Dr. Joy, actually we cannot hear you clearly.
Yes. I think the connection still in trouble.
To address
Hello, Dr. Krestel Joy. Can you hear me, Dr. Krestel? Because we cannot hear you clearly.
Okay, again, sorry for that. Can you
Okay.
hear me?
Yes.
Thank you.
And
Few slides more.
actually, Dr. Krestel Joy, the time is up, but we can give you 1 more minute to give a
Yeah.
summary for your
Okay.
lecture.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yes, I think I have two slides more. Okay, so these are the One Health approaches of different countries. They have the mass vaccination of dogs, sterilization of dogs, education and awareness to the communities, the field trials of the oral vaccination, uh, rabies vaccination. In the Philippines, we have the Anti-Rabies Act of 2007. So we have a vision of having the rabies-free Philippines in 2020, but now we have the vision of having this rabies-free Philippines in 2030. And in the next slide, before the pandemic, we conducted the mass vaccination in different communities or localities, but due to pandemic, the program stopped and disrupted. However, it is 2021, the Philippine Veterinary Medical Association started the campaign again, and they initiated the spay and the neuter program, the mass vaccination, the different communities to help in preventing and controlling the rabies. Next slide, please. So as a veterinarian, so let us remember we have to encourage rabies vaccination and use approved vaccines in approved species, cooperate with the state or the government in bringing the specimen to the laboratory for rabies diagnosis. We have to determine the health status of exposed or biting domestic animals, primary responsibility for determining the signs compatible with rabies developed, and we have to assist the authorities in deciding what constitutes an exposure. So let us not wait for rabies to become a pandemic. So let's start combating this rabies virus amidst the COVID-19 pandemic. That's all. Thank you so much. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes. Thank you so much, Dr. Joy, for such nice presentation about running rabies amid COVID-19 pandemic. Because I remember in my before pandemic, I also with my student have research, but not in dog, but in vet, like a Batman. But so the doctor said that you need to get a rabies vaccine first to do, because I remember not only in dog or cat or a mammal, but Batman also get rabies. Also, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Yes, great. So today we have two speakers who already done talk of the Dr. Amar talk about the complex management in poultry and swine, and Dr. Choi also talk about the running rabies and how we combating the rabies not to become pandemics like this. It's really dangerous, and both of these themes will be great if we know each other for the management and also for the prevention or mitigation, something like that. And I heard from the wait before I see from the forms. Okay, from the form of the question, we didn't see any questions for the two speakers. However, I think I have a question, but I think we will email you or ask you in other time due to the committee already talked that the time is already done. Is that correct for the MC, Matthias and Ibu Reni? And I think thank you so much so for both of the great expert speaker today that really talk to us about the poultry, swine, and how to be a good management, because we know that in Indonesia also we have like traditional management in poultry, and yes, we do really in everyday eggs was really easy to us to eat in the breakfast time, and every mother like me will be just going to the kitchen and do like egg, something like that. And for the rabies, yes, I remember with the veterinary before, because I need to go to the fields and do research in Batman, and the doctor says you need to get the vaccine first. What kind of vaccine? Rabies. Oh, okay. I'm just like, oh, okay, we need that. And this is the first time we hear it. Thank you so much. So apologize me. Maybe for the kind of not good response, and also maybe we have a lot of good conversation. And I think I also talked with I mean, in the previous seminar I talked to our head of department, maybe from with the Tarrag University itself, and my department from biology department. We want to invite you maybe from with the help from the international office to get a collaboration, because in biology we also have many related research in that. And I think beside biology department, ITS also have biomedicine in the electrical engineering. So that's maybe more collaborating between us. Thank you so much once again to Dr. Amar and Dr. Joy. It's such very nice to know new for me, because I'm basically not in poultry, I'm in forestry. And also to Dr. Joy, that's I remember about rabies more. Thank you so much, and I think the time I will give to the MC, Mbak Denti. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Amar and Dr. Joy, for the excellent lecture today, and thank you, Ms. Iska, for guiding us through this amazing session. And please give a round of applause to our speaker and moderator by using the Zoom reaction feature. And furthermore, we would like to present a certificate awarding to our speaker and also our moderator today. So the first certificate is for Dr. Amar. Yeah, this is the certificate. Thank you once again, Dr. Amar. And the next is for Dr. Joy. Once again, thank you, Dr. Joy. And last but not least is the certificate for our moderator, Ms. Iska. Thank you, Ms. Iska. And once again, thank you very much to our speaker and moderator for your availability on today's guest lecture series. And we believe that your lecture will be useful for all the participants. And now, before we end our lecture today, we invite all the participants, as well as the honorable speaker and moderator, to take a group photo. And to all the participants, please open your camera. And as we have only one slide, it should be fast. Maybe the committee can help me. I will count to 3. 1, 2, 3. Okay. Thank you. And now we have finished the group photo. And for the participants, please fill the feedback form through the link bit.ly/feedback_GLS that you can also see on the chat room. And the deadline for filling the feedback form is 1 hour after we finish this session. And we want to remind you that the participants who will get the stamp are the participants who come on time, join this event until the end, and also fill the feedback form. And for next week, we will hold one interesting topic. It is about SDGs goal number 16, peace, justice, and strong institution, where the topic ways to development of social justice. That will be delivered by Mr. Salih Saglan from Sulaiman Demirel University. And finally, we have reached the end of our today's guest lecture series, and we sincerely apologize for any mistakes that we have made in presenting as master of ceremony and committee. Thank you very much to our honorable speaker, moderator, and all participants for the attention and cooperation. We hope to see you soon in other events in the future, and do not forget to follow our social media on Instagram at ITS International Office and Facebook ITS International Office, and keep updated of our programs. Good afternoon. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much
Thank you.
for this opportunity, and we hope to see you again.
Yes, thank you so much.